I'm Emily, and one evening, my family's dinner turned into a nightmare when my sister's boyfriend called me worthless in front of everyone. No one said a word. I walked out, but the shock didn't stop there. My life, my career, and my family were about to unravel. Ever had a moment like that? Tell me your story. Dinner was supposed to be a casual evening, but nothing about it felt casual when Carlos, my sister's boyfriend, dropped the bomb. He just blurted it out. "You're worthless. You're just alone because you're useless." And the room froze. The laughter that followed hit me like a slap, sharp and cold. No one defended me. Not a single voice, not even from my own parents. I stood there, blinking, and then I walked out. I didn't hear anything after that. They didn't stop me, didn't ask where I was going. It wasn't just the words, it was the silence after. The way everyone just let it happen, as if it wasn't a big deal, as if I wasn't a part of that family anymore. I didn't talk to anyone on the drive back to my apartment. My phone buzzed once, twice. Texts from my sister, from my mom. I didn't read them. The next morning, the air was still thick. The office wasn't any better. I walked in, smiling the same way I always did, like nothing had happened. But I couldn't shake the feeling. Every glance felt like a judgment, though no one said anything. At the end of the day, I sat at my desk, trying to focus. My boss asked if I'd been okay, if something was going on. "Yeah," I said, trying to keep it together. "Just family stuff." I wasn't sure if I meant it. Was it just family stuff? It didn't feel like just family stuff anymore. Then my phone rang. It was my sister. "Hey," she said. "You all right?" I didn't answer at first. My mouth felt dry. "I'm fine," I said, too quickly. "I'm sorry about Carlos," she added. "He didn't mean it. You know how he is." Did I? I didn't know how he was anymore. I never asked for his opinion, and I definitely never asked for his insults. "I'm fine," I repeated. "It's nothing." I hung up, not wanting to keep talking. I couldn't even process it all. How could I when nothing made sense anymore? I couldn't let this be the thing that defined me. I couldn't just sit there and let it weigh me down. But I couldn't shake off the words either, not when they kept bouncing around in my head. I had to do something about it. So I decided I'd go to the mountains this weekend. Just for a couple of days. I needed to be away from everything, away from them. I needed to figure out how to fix this, and maybe, just maybe, get back to myself. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't even pretend that nothing had happened. Carlos's words from dinner kept ringing in my ears. Worthless. Like a dirty little secret I wasn't supposed to hear. Everyone else seemed to forget. But I couldn't. By the time the work week rolled around, I could barely make it through the morning without feeling the weight of it all. At the office, I kept my head down, pushing papers, responding to emails. But something was different. I could feel it. The coldness. I wasn't the same to them anymore. Lily, my coworker from finance, caught me in the break room as I was grabbing my coffee. She tried to act casual, but I could see the pity in her eyes, even when she smiled. "Hey, you doing okay?" I gave a tight smile and shrugged. "I'm fine." She nodded, but her eyes lingered a second too long. "All right, just wanted to check. We all have those family moments, right?" "Yeah," I said. "Family." I didn't have the energy to explain that it wasn't just some family moment. It was a fucking breakdown. But I didn't have the heart to make her feel bad either, so I just sipped my coffee, nodding as she walked off. The truth was, it wasn't just my coworkers noticing. The phone calls from home slowed to a trickle. The ones that did come through were cold. My mom left a voicemail, her voice strained, as if trying too hard to sound like everything was fine. "I hope you're all right, honey. I know things have been tense. Just, let's all try to keep it together, okay?" That was it. Nothing more. No mention of what had happened. No apology. I erased the message without even listening to the rest of it. A few hours later, my sister Sarah finally texted. "I just wanted to check in. Are you still mad?" Mad. It was a funny word to describe what I felt. I wasn't just angry. I was broken. But I didn't respond. What was there to say? At least Alex was still in my corner. He'd been the only one to call, to actually ask how I was doing, and it felt like I could breathe for a moment. Alex never judged me, never asked for explanations. He just listened. "You're not alone in this," he said when we talked later that evening. "You know that, right?" I let out a long breath. It doesn't feel like it. I don't think anyone in my family cares. They just want me to act like everything's normal. "Yeah, well, that's the thing about families," Alex replied. "They think you'll always just go along with whatever they want. But you don't have to. You have to stand up for yourself, Em." I knew what he meant, but standing up for myself felt impossible. The very thought made me feel like I was about to break into 1,000 pieces. Still, his words stuck with me. I had to stand up for myself. By Friday, the weight of the week had worn me thin. Work was no better. Sarah was now sidelining me from key decisions in our project. Everything was slipping out of my hands, and I had no say in it. Sarah, on the other hand, was moving ahead with things I'd been doing for months. I wasn't a part of it anymore. I couldn't take it anymore. At lunch, I pulled her aside. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the anger bubbling inside. She looked at me like I was the crazy one. "Doing what? I'm just handling things. You've been distracted lately." "Distraction isn't the problem. You're pushing me out." She sighed, crossing her arms. "I'm just doing my job, Emily." "You're doing it at my expense." She shrugged. "Well, maybe you should step up more. We're all dealing with a lot right now." Her words felt like a slap in the face, but I wasn't going to let her win. I was packing for the hike when the email popped up on my phone. I had been looking forward to the weekend, a chance to get away from it all, to clear my head. But the email from my boss, a simple notification, threw everything off course. "Due to unforeseen scheduling conflicts, your project is being postponed. Please coordinate with Sarah to ensure continuity." The words sat there for a second, then hit me. The project I'd been pouring my time into, the one I was supposed to lead, was now out of my hands. And Sarah, my colleague who always seemed to be in the right place at the right time, was the one they chose to coordinate with. It felt like I was being shoved aside once again. I set my phone down, taking a deep breath. "Just a minor setback," I muttered to myself. But something in me knew it wasn't just that. Every decision lately, every conversation, seemed to be leading to me being pushed to the background, like my role had somehow become less important. The weekend was supposed to be my break, the time to disconnect, but now I wasn't sure if that was even possible. I had to deal with Sarah, and I wasn't looking forward to it. I shot her a quick text. "Can you please make sure everything's on track for the project? Let me know if you need any input from my side." Her reply came almost instantly. "Got it. I'll handle things from here. No worries." Just like that. No questions, no back and forth, just a quick, dismissive answer. It wasn't a surprise, but it still felt like a slap. My involvement in this project had always been central, and now it was just handled by someone else. Again. By the time I finished packing, I was already feeling the tension building. The hike was supposed to clear my head, but now it felt like it might just give me more time to stew over everything. The drive was long and winding, and the mountains looked the same as they always had. But today, they didn't feel like an escape. It wasn't just the project, though that stung. It was the way everything seemed to be shifting. First, it was Carlos's words. Then the silence from my family. Now this at work. Everything felt like it was slipping through my fingers. When I arrived at the trailhead, I saw a group of hikers heading back. The fresh air hit me, and I tried to shake off the discomfort gnawing at me. I didn't come here to think about Sarah or my family or the project I couldn't control. But those things were stuck in my mind stubbornly. I project pulled my pack tighter, trying to focus on the steps ahead. But my phone buzzed again. It was Sarah. "Hey, just wanted to let you know, I'm going to make a few changes to the project plan. I've got a new approach. Hope that's okay." I stared at the screen. Of course she had a new approach. She always did. And why not? She wasn't the one who had worked on this for months. I was just the person who got sidelined when things got tough. The frustration boiled up, but I swallowed it down. I wasn't going to let this ruin the entire trip. I didn't care if Sarah thought she could do it better. This wasn't her project, and I wasn't going to sit back and watch her run it into the ground. I typed back quickly. I'll be taking over the project from here. I need to make sure it gets done right. The response from Sarah came a few minutes later. Fine, but I'm telling you, this is going to be a lot of work. Are you sure you want to step in now? Of course I was sure. I couldn't let her dictate the terms anymore. As I hiked up the trail, my thoughts scattered in 100 different directions. I should have been enjoying the view, feeling free, but everything kept pulling me back. It wasn't just about the project. It was about everything. My family, my work, my sense of self. I felt like I was losing control bit by bit. And now, with this new decision, it seemed like I was finally taking a stand. But just before I took the first step, my phone buzzed again. Another email from work. This time, the subject was a reminder about Sarah's updates to the project. The hike had been refreshing, but the relief didn't last long. I had barely unpacked my things when the email came through. The subject line hit me like a punch. Important notice regarding family loan. I froze. My eyes went over the words a second time, making sure I hadn't missed something. It was from a financial agency I didn't recognize. They were informing me that I was a co-signer for a loan that had been defaulted on. The amount was staggering, $50,000. The message was brief and cold. Immediate action required. I read it again, my hands shaking now. My mind raced. How could this happen? I wasn't even aware my father had taken out a loan that big. Sure, I knew things had been tight for him over the years, but I had never been involved in anything like this. The email didn't offer much explanation, just a request for a response within the next 48 hours. There was no mention of how it came to be that I was now responsible for a debt I had never agreed to. I called my father's phone immediately. It rang once, then twice, then went to voicemail. The second time I tried, he picked up, sounding almost distracted. "Hey, Emily." "What's up?" "Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I just got this email. It says I'm co-signed for a loan, $50,000. What's going on?" There was a long pause, a shift in his tone. "Oh, that." "That?" I pressed, my heart beating faster. "What do you mean, that? How could you not tell me about something like this?" "Look, Emily, it's not as bad as it sounds. I didn't think it was necessary to bring you into it." The urge to scream rose sharply, but it stayed trapped in my chest. "How is this not necessary? I'm on the hook for it." There was silence on the other end, then a sigh. "I'm sorry, okay? We'll figure it out." "How?" The question slipped out before it could be softened. "How do you even fix something like this? I didn't sign anything. I never agreed to this." "Just calm down, Emily. I'll take care of it." The words landed flat. No confidence. Only the same vague promises, recycled and hollow. The call ended. Hands were still shaking. No clear next step. The email was right. Time wasn't a luxury. The weight of it all settled like a heavy cloak, pressing down, stealing the illusion of control that had felt solid just hours ago. The next couple of hours blurred into documents, fine print, unfamiliar terms. Nothing offered relief. No easy answers. Clearing my name was the only option, but the path forward refused to show itself. A lawyer from work picked up the call. He listened carefully, then spoke with practiced restraint. "You'll need every document you can find. If you didn't co-sign, you can fight this, but it won't be quick, and it won't be easy." He was right, and that realization cut deeper than expected. This wasn't just a financial mess. It was betrayal. Quiet, procedural, carried out by the very people who were supposed to protect me. That evening, a text came in from Sarah. "Can we talk? Just wanted to check in about the project." The project. a convenient word for everything she'd taken over without asking. It should have been surprising. It wasn't. Resentment crept in slowly, unwelcome but justified. She had no idea what was unfolding, yet kept moving forward as if nothing had shifted. A reply was typed and erased, then sent. "We need to talk, but not about work." Her response came almost instantly. "Is everything okay?" A pause. Then honesty, stripped down. "No, actually it's not. I'm dealing with something personal, and I need space to figure it out. Let me know if you need anything." The words stung more than expected. This wasn't about help. It was about control, and how little of it remained. Work was impossible to focus on now. Sarah's project could wait. Everything could wait, except the debt hanging over my head, except the silence from my own family, except the truth that had been deliberately withheld. The bag was grabbed. The trail outside called quietly but insistently. No answers waited there, but movement felt better than sitting still under the weight of it all. Before leaving, a message was sent to my father. "I'm going to handle this myself." The next morning, the law office felt colder than it should have. The lawyer looked up with a knowing expression, as if this visit had been inevitable. "Let's get started," he said, gesturing to the chair. The whole morning passed at the desk, eyes fixed on the screen, words blurring together without meaning. The last few weeks had dissolved into phone calls, text messages, meetings that led nowhere. Nothing was actually getting resolved. My father's debt loomed like a storm cloud, impossible to outrun, and the reality of it was finally settling in. Everything that had taken years to build, the career, the sense of stability, even personal relationships, felt like it was slipping away. Every moment of false control exposed how fragile it all was. The debt, the quiet betrayal from family, the mounting pressure at work. Each one nudged me closer to the edge. "Emily, can I talk to you for a minute?" Sarah stood in the doorway. The energy to look up wasn't there. Pretending everything was fine felt exhausting. "Yeah, come in," came the reply, still facing the screen. She stepped inside, a stack of papers in her hands. I wanted to go over the latest revisions to the project plan. Her voice was calm, too calm, almost like she already knew something was wrong. A slow exhale. Composure had to be forced. "I don't have time for that right now, Sarah." Her eyes flickered, frustration flashing briefly before disappearing. "You sure? We've got a deadline coming up. I thought you'd want to stay on top of things." The papers caught my attention for a second. "Just email them to me. I'll look later." "Look, Emily." She hesitated, then softened. "I know things are tough right now. You're dealing with a lot. But we really need to stay focused." That tone, the almost care, made everything worse. Pity wasn't needed. Help wasn't either. This was mine to fix. "Not now, Sarah," came out sharper than intended. "There are bigger things to deal with." She nodded without another word and left. Footsteps faded down the hall. The screen stared back again, still unreadable. Work felt distant. The project barely existed. Even Sarah's attempt to help seemed irrelevant. All that remained was the weight of family failure, the betrayal, the responsibility never asked for. Letting it reach this point felt like a personal failure. Exhaustion settled in fully. Mental, emotional, physical. The lawyer's email was still open, unanswered. The final option, legal action, proof that the loan wasn't mine. But doubt crept in. What if it was? What if this really was my mess to clean up? Avoiding it wasn't possible anymore. The debt wasn't just financial. It carried years of emotional weight. Escaping the cycle my family had created suddenly felt impossible. A knock broke the silence. "Come in," without looking up. Alex stood there, concern written plainly across his face. He always knew. "You okay?" He crossed the room and sat down. A sigh escaped, hands rubbing tired eyes. "Not really. Talk to me." The words resisted. Guilt, frustration, that trapped feeling, it all tangled together. Alex leaned forward. "You can't do everything, Emily. You don't have to fix it all. You're human." A shake of the head, tears threatening. "But I have to. No one else will." He reached across the desk, hand closing over mine. You don't have to do it alone. You've got me. You've got friends. And you've got yourself. You don't need to carry the whole world. Believing, I'm so tired of being the one who fixes everything. The words came quietly. I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending I'm fine. You don't have to pretend, he said gently. You're allowed to break. You're allowed to ask for help. Tears. We'll figure this out, Alex added. One step at a time. A nod followed. Hollow. I don't even know where to start. Start with the truth, he said. Start by facing your dad. Get answers. He was right. The thought of confronting my father again, after everything, was terrifying. Ready or not, running wasn't an option anymore. The truth had to be faced, no matter how painful. As Alex stood to leave, a decision settled in. This confrontation wouldn't just be about the debt. It would be about everything. The control had to end. How it would go was unclear, but it was time. This mess wasn't going to destroy me. Not again. The email came when I was least expecting it. I had barely had a moment to catch my breath after everything that had happened with my family and the mounting debt. But there it was, an email from a lawyer, the subject line boldly stating, "Important information regarding loan co-signature." My heart skipped a beat as I opened it. The message was simple, but to the point. Dear Ms. Carter, after reviewing your case, we believe there is a strong possibility that you are not legally responsible for the debt you are being held accountable for. Our records indicate no formal agreement from your side to co-sign the loan in question. If you can provide documentation or evidence to support this, you may be able to avoid full financial responsibility. I stared at the screen, unable to process what I was reading. My father had lied to me. He'd involved me in a financial contract without telling me, and now it seemed like I had a chance to fight it. The relief was immediate, but fleeting. The truth hit hard. How long had my father known about this? How much had he kept from me? I wasn't sure if I felt betrayed or just tired. But it didn't matter. The truth was finally in front of me, and I couldn't look away. I quickly called the lawyer, setting up an appointment to discuss the next steps. But as I hung up, my mind was already racing through the implications. If my father had indeed forged my name, I had every right to fight back. But would he even admit it? Could I trust him to tell me the truth now? Before I could dive deeper into those thoughts, my phone rang. It was my mother. I answered, steeling myself. "Emily, I need to talk to you," she said, her voice laced with something I couldn't quite read. Concern, maybe? Or guilt? "About what?" I asked, not bothering to hide the irritation in my voice. I wasn't in the mood to be placated. "Your father's been under a lot of stress. This whole situation, it's not easy for any of us." I took a breath, trying to keep my cool. "He put me on a loan without telling me. You knew, didn't you? You both knew." Her silence on the other end was deafening. "Emily, please," she said after a long pause. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." "Harder?" I nearly shouted. "I'm the one who's been left holding the bag. I've been lied to, used, and now I'm stuck trying to clean up their mess." "Calm down," she said, her voice suddenly colder. "You need to stop making everything about you." Hands gripped the edge of the counter, knuckles turning white. "It's not just about me, Mom. It's about the fact that you and Dad have been dragging me into things without my consent for years, and I'm tired of it." A pause followed, the kind that came when someone was searching for a way around the truth. "You don't understand," she said finally, voice low. "We were doing what we thought was best for you, for all of us." "What was best for yourselves," came the sharp reply, "and I've been the one cleaning up your mess. How many times do I have to say it?" No answer. Only a subtle change in her breathing, hesitation thickening the air before she said, "This isn't the time for this conversation, Emily." The call ended with the phone slammed onto the table. Anger surged, hot and uncontrollable. Never had my family felt so distant, so unfamiliar. The betrayal cut deeper than expected, deep enough to shake any remaining sense of who I was. The lawyer's email sat open again. Maybe it was an exit. Maybe it wasn't. Either way, letting this slide was no longer an option. Thoughts were gathered slowly, hands forced to steady. Preparation mattered now. The confrontation ahead couldn't be avoided. My parents would no longer get to dictate the course of my life. This had to be made right. For myself. The path forward was still unclear. Confront them directly, demand the truth, or, finally, release the guilt they'd used for years to keep me compliant. An email draft to the lawyer took shape. Evidence followed. Emails, receipts, text messages, anything that could matter. The heart pounded with each attachment added. This wasn't only about money anymore. It was about the future, about dignity, about reclaiming a sense of self. The phone buzzed again. A message from my father. "Emily, I know you're upset. I'll make this right. I'll fix it." The words reignited the anger instantly. This wasn't something he could fix. Not now. Not after years of manipulation, years of silence, years of being kept in the dark under the illusion that everything was fine. This had to be faced. By him and by me. A reply was sent. One sentence. "I'll deal with this on my own." The lawyer's office felt colder today. Maybe it was the crisp air outside. Maybe the weight of the decision just made. Either way, something had shifted inside. For the first time in a long while, certainty settled in. My father wasn't going to manipulate me anymore. "You're sure about this?" the lawyer asked, voice steady, almost too calm. A nod, hands clasped tightly in front of me. "I'm sure." The legal papers were ready. The strategy was set. This confrontation wouldn't be just about the debt, but about everything that had come before. Years of silently taking responsibility for burdens that were never mine to carry were over. "You understand the consequences, right?" His eyes stayed on the documents. "This won't be easy. It could get messy." "Messy is fine," came the reply, surprising even me with its calm. "This needs to be fixed. It can't go on." He leaned back, studying me for a moment. "All right, we'll file the claim and take it from there. You might not get everything you want, but you'll get the chance to fight back." That was enough. The decision was made. For once, there was no waiting for someone else to make things right. This was mine to handle. At home, a message from my father waited on the screen. "Emily, I know you're upset. I'll fix this. I promise." The familiar anger rose immediately. How many times had those words been used? "I'll fix it." Nothing had ever truly been fixed. A quick reply followed. "I'll take care of it myself. You're not fixing anything." The phone rang before it could be set down. "Emily, I don't know why you're doing this," my father said, trying for calm, panic bleeding through the edges. "You're making things worse." A bitter laugh escaped, fingers tightening around the phone. "Worse? You think this is worse than what you've already done?" Silence. Then a deep sigh. "I'm doing what I can. You don't understand how hard this is." "No," I cut in. "I understand perfectly. You don't want to face the consequences, so you keep dragging me into it. I'm done." The silence that followed was heavy, thick with years of avoidance. Years of him stepping back, years of me stepping in. "Emily, please," he said, voice breaking. "Don't do this." But it was already done. "You're the one who did this. I'm not fixing it for you anymore." The call ended. The phone felt heavier than expected. For a moment, something felt lost. Then clarity followed. What had been gained mattered more. The next morning, my mother called. No pause, no greeting, straight into her familiar defense. "You don't understand what's at stake, Emily. Your father is doing the best he can." "No, he's not," came the sharp interruption. "He's been lying to me, and I'm done letting him get away with it." "Don't talk like that. He's your father." "And I'm his daughter," I said firmly. "That doesn't mean I owe him my life. I've been cleaning up after him for years. I'm not doing it anymore." A pause followed. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, almost defeated. "I didn't want it to go this far. You don't know the whole story." "I don't need to," I replied. "I'm dealing with it, Mom. You can choose to be part of this or not, but I'm moving forward." The silence lingered, heavy, but this time, it didn't matter. This fight was mine. Later that day, the legal documents were spread out again. Every clause, every piece of evidence, nothing left unchecked. Readiness settled in fully. The weight of the decision felt different now. Lighter. This wasn't just about debt. It was about reclaiming a life and a future. Anyone who thought they could walk all over me would have to face reality. When the lawyer's office came into view the next day, only one thing filled my mind: the future. My family's mistakes would no longer dictate my life. The power to change things had always been there. This time, it was being used. The weeks following the legal proceedings felt like a blur. The aftermath of everything I'd put in motion started to sink in. My father, once a source of safety and security, now faced the full weight of his actions. The legal consequences were swift. His financial dealings were under investigation, and soon the public would know the truth. The weight of it all fell on him, and it was clear he would have to pay the price for the years of deception. The house, which had always been a symbol of stability for me, was now a symbol of broken promises. My father would have to sell it to cover part of the debts, his pride shattered along with the reputation he'd tried so hard to protect. There were no words of apology, no explanations, only the coldness of what was now a reality for him. I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for him, not after everything, not after what he had done to me and the family. I had thought that seeing him face consequences would bring some sense of closure, but it didn't. There was no satisfaction in watching him fall from grace. I didn't feel victorious. It was simply a matter of doing what had to be done. The truth had to come out, no matter how much it hurt. I hadn't spoken to him since the last confrontation, and I wasn't sure if I ever would again. He had apologized once, more of a plea than an apology, but I had learned not to take his words at face value. His promises were always empty. The silence between us now was more than just a break in communication. It was the only boundary I had left. The strange thing was, the longer the silence stretched, the more I realized that I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I was simply indifferent. My father's failure wasn't mine to carry, and that was something I hadn't understood until now. The hardest part had been learning to let go of the guilt he had instilled in me. That was the real victory. I was done with his manipulation, done with living under the weight of his choices. My mother, too, had distanced herself, her words filled with resignation. She was caught between a love for him and the reality of his actions, but it wasn't my burden to carry anymore. I didn't need her approval. I didn't need anyone to make me feel like I was doing the right thing. "Have you heard from your dad?" Alex asked one evening after I'd come home from a long day at work. He had been there through everything, never judging, just listening. "No," I said, the word coming out with an unexpected calm. "I don't expect to." "You've really made your peace with it, huh?" he asked, his voice softer than usual. I nodded slowly. "It's not peace, it's just the reality. I've learned to accept it." There was a long pause before Alex spoke again. "You're strong, Emily. I don't think you realize how much. But you've got to remember, this is your life, not his." I could have cried, but the tears didn't come. They had already been shed. I had cried enough for both of us, for the years of wondering if my love and loyalty were ever enough. I had tried so hard to please him, to fix everything that had gone wrong in our family. But that was over now. I started to rebuild my life in ways I hadn't thought possible. The weight of my father's choices was no longer something I carried. I returned to my job with a renewed sense of purpose, though everything had changed. I was no longer just a cog in the machine. I was more than that. I was the person who had taken control, who had made the hard decisions and stood up for herself. I took a deep breath, looking at the skyline from my apartment window. I was living on my terms now. For the first time in years, I wasn't looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next crisis to arrive. There were still days when the shadows of my family's mistakes crept into my thoughts, but I refused to let them consume me. I had a future now, one that wasn't defined by the mistakes of those who came before me. I was carving my own path, and I wasn't about to let anyone, least of all my father, derail me. I signed up for a rock climbing class on a whim one evening. The thrill of conquering the course felt like a metaphor for my life. Every grip, every step upward was me taking control, gaining strength where I once felt weak. The more I climbed, the clearer it became. I was finally free. The phone buzzed with a text message. I picked it up, seeing a number I didn't recognize. It was from my lawyer. The settlement went through. Everything is resolved. Your name is cleared. For a moment, I just stared at the words. I hadn't expected any fanfare, but hearing that confirmation somehow made everything real. The burden was lifted. I wasn't just moving on from my father's mistakes. I was walking away unburdened. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. It wasn't a happy ending. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it was my story, and I had written it. I put the phone down and walked toward the door. There was a whole world out there waiting for me, and I wasn't afraid to face it. Not anymore. I stepped out of my apartment, into the city, into my future. The road ahead was mine to travel, and for the first time, I was ready to take the journey.